I think we're live. How's it going, Hugh? I know we've just said how's
Yeah,
it going, but I thought we would do it more commercially. How are you,
when
Hugh?
people see, I am very well, thank you, Sean. How are you?
I am well, thank you. And that was pretty much how it went when we first said hi. That was it.
Pretty much, yeah. No, we've had a busy week, haven't we? It's by the sounds of it,
Yeah,
we've had a similar week. One of those weeks where there's been a lot pouring in than what's being produced on the other end. But it's what we both signed up for, and we accept that, and we can change that. And yeah, it's been like a slightly, I wouldn't say frustrating week. It's just been one of those ones where I just felt like I've not been going anywhere, like just wading in
yeah.
snow or something. It just feels like it's been a lot of effort and not really doesn't feel like it's got anywhere yet. But so I try and remind myself of the just focus on the process and not the outcome, and just keep, as long as I'm doing the right things, it'll sort itself out.
Yeah, I keep saying that quote that I heard on the Ted Lasso, which I want to repeat it for everybody here, which I think it's just so accurate in so many ways for everybody's life. If it's like riding a horse, if it's comfortable while you're doing it, you ain't doing it right. And I think if you look at everything that people do to try to make themselves better, whenever you put yourself in a position to make yourself better, you should be uncomfortable. It even goes
Yeah,
down to the even the biology of lifting weights and strength training. If it's easy, then you're not doing it right. And
yeah.
I think that is so applicable to so many walks of life.
Sometimes though, when you do, 4 or 5 training sessions and you get through it, and then you get the feeling at the end of it. I've got one of those weeks where I'm still in the workout. That's what it feels like. So
Mm,
using that as an analogy, it's painful as you get through it, but off the back of it, there's this sense of satisfaction and fulfillment.
yeah.
Some of the stuff that's happened this week, I haven't got that. I'm just wading through the workout, still doing the reps. I'm knackered, I'm tired, I'm still pushing. I haven't got that satisfaction, but it will come. And like you said, it's no one else's fault. It's all on me. I kind of I take on too much. This is one of the downsides to it. But
Yeah.
we were both saying that we've been looking forward to this call at the very least. Is something that we can really get
Yeah.
into, and we've got a cracking topic for everyone today.
Well, I shared this one with you because I think last week we covered Konstantin Kizin, which that was a really interesting conversation. And this came up in my feed. And I remember saying to you last week that I've been trying to, I referenced Ted Lasso. I've been trying to get more positive things in my timeline because I think the way when you start looking at all your social media feeds, all the Instagram feeds, there's a lot of positive things, but there's a lot of negativity, especially with some of the political stuff you're reading. And what I've always liked about Mr. Beast is he represents just something positive that you can see. Very simple, easy, mindless fun. And I think a lot of people, this is my view. And again, I don't know if this is to be true, but I view, before we look at this video, I always view Mr. Beast as a fairly genuine person for where he's at. He's worked his ass off, and he's somebody
I know.
who I just for me, he comes across as somebody who uh if you were to meet him in person, would be every bit the genuine person. I don't get the impression that when the cameras turn off with him, he's swearing and throwing shit at his staff.
I think we've got a, yeah, I get the same impression, and I've kind of seen behind the scenes stuff of him operating as well.
Mm.
He's kind of pretty much as you see. His videos, he's got like the Beast host voice, and he does, and he's acting in a certain way, but he is who he is, I think, largely speaking. And yeah, I am a massive fan of his. Like going into
Yeah.
YouTube and doing my own thing, I've obviously studied him and looked at what he does, and from someone that I just thought like he's just a clever kid, he's more than that. He
Yeah.
he's a very special human being, actually,
I, I
capable of a
I
huge
agree
amount.
that. Yeah, I saw what, just as an example, I saw that there was some controversy on people that, saying that they've been, Mr. Beast has treated them poorly and fired him or whatever. And I know there's been instances where, when the truth comes out, generally speaking, it always seems to edge towards Jimmy and Mr. Beast being the good party. And I know that whenever he's had to fire somebody, he's then worked to find them work somewhere else that maybe was more interesting for him, which isn't something he really needs to spend any of his time doing. So I think he is a genuine guy. And this video we're going to watch, so we're going to be talking about the Mr. Beast curing blindness video, because this got some backlash. Have you seen this video at all, Hugh?
I haven't actually watched the whole video, no.
I don't think we'll watch the whole thing. We'll watch a few minutes of it together just to give you a taste of what's happening. But I watched this video and I left feeling very good. I was just like, oh, good. Something that makes me feel positive about things moving forward. And the reason I brought this up, after the day after I'd watched it, he had gotten backlash for this video. And I thought, what the fuck? Why is he getting backlash for this? And that's something I think we'll talk about in greater detail. But let's share the video, which you'd think I would have had it set up to do so.
No. Come on, Sean, we don't do that.
So we want to do, let's do this here. Share screen.
Yeah, so I've watched the second video we're going to go into, which is the accusation side of it, because I was very much coming at it from your angle. I've not watched the video. I know watching his videos before, within the first kind of 30 seconds to a minute, we're going to know pretty much what's going on.
Yeah. Let me know if you can't hear, Hugo. So just tell me when to stop, but I think I have it set up correctly. I'll make sure the volume's up. Okay. So here we go.
This video, we're curing 1,000 people's blindness. It's gonna be crazy. Most of us see the world like this. But here's the thing, 200 million people see the world like this. But I just made it one less.
Oh. Wow.
She's just one of 1,000 blind people we helped from around the world.
They can't see, but we have all the technology to fix it.
Yep, half of all the blindness in the world is people who need a 10-minute surgery.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I see everybody. Oh, I can see clear. I can jump for joy.
Yeah, I can see your face, I can see your face, I can see your face.
If you're wondering how the surgery allows people to see again, it's because the lens in their eye got so cloudy that they can't see through it. So the surgeon uses a tiny vacuum to suck up the clouded lens.
Whoa, it's sucking.
And replace it with an artificial one. The surgery is that simple. They can see again.
Oh, it's so sweet.
You pay for my surgery?
Yes.
Seriously?
You know what? Here's $10,000 to make your day even better. Is she okay? We're gonna go fix more people's eyesight. She's squeezing hard. And we're just getting started. We still have 980 lives left to change.
There's my watch. I've never seen it before.
Oh my God.
I had night blindness. I couldn't see that you just deal with it life.
I'm Nolan, by the way.
I'm Carl.
You're Carl? I know a guy named Carl. Not a good guy.
Moment of truth.
Wow, you are pretty.
What's it like? What do you see? Blur.
How long have you not been able to work for?
4 months.
Did you hear about the cross-eyed teacher? She couldn't control her pupils.
I'm gonna need anesthetics soon.
Oh man, no cloudiness, no blurriness.
Oh, it's perfect.
Now, what's it like?
I can see everything.
I don't need these.
Our next patient is Charlie. You're not able to read any of this text on the TV?
No, it's an E or something, I think.
He won't know he won 10 grand until after his surgery. I can't wait to see his reaction. Charlie sees everything like this, and it's made him and his family's life extremely difficult.
I was a cashier. My eyes was getting so bad. I couldn't see the money to give back. I just want to get my vision back so I can go back to work.
You're gonna be really happy after this surgery.
We'll see after it.
Trust me, you will see.
When patients go into surgery, there's a chance that they can get their life back. And for Charlie, if the surgery goes well, he can go back to work. What's it like?
Oh, wow.
All right, let's see if he can read it now. What does this say?
You just won $10,000.
Here you go.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, sir.
It feels good. I didn't think I'd ever be able to see it again.
Thank you all so much.
I think we'll stop it there, but you get the gist. I mean, we can continue to go play it, but we just see, if you watch the video, you see instance after instance where, you know, he repeats this. At one point, he gives a kid whose blindness he cures a Tesla, who's always wanted to drive, and he's paid for money for this surgery all over the world. I don't know how many people. I think he said maybe something like 1 million people that he's paid for the surgery for. So he's gotten backlash, and that surprised me. Maybe it shouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Initially, when you sent the clip to me, I was like, how can anyone? But then again, you're spot on, right? Like, I think we like to pull people down in society, sadly, or social media does, or I suppose the minority of people out there do like to get a bit of a kick from trying to pull someone down or to stick the knife in somewhere to make themselves feel a little bit better. I just felt warm and fuzzy watching that. I've got a question for you, Sean.
About it.
Have you ever gone through that? Because I went through, like, let's say 20% of that when I first went in and got my contacts in when I was must have been 17, 18. So I was like squinting at the screen. I chalkboard when they're writing it, and I had to copy from my friend. It's like, mate, you need glasses. Like, no way, I don't need glasses. Ignoring it. And I knew that I did. And I went up really close, and a number of people just said, look, I think you're going to need glasses. And then I went in and put contacts in, and I was just like that. It was like, oh my God, I can see everything. The feeling was unbelievable. I could just see detail. It wasn't blurred or cloudy and anything to that extent, but I just couldn't get any detail. And then suddenly the revelation. And again, that's just a fraction of what these guys have gone through. So you can only imagine, like, he has totally transformed their life. So yeah, what a cool thing to do.
And that's what made me feel good. I love. I think the one thing you and I both like is we'll send videos to each other of the one that Two Bears One Cave, with just them laughing their asses off, and anything where there's somebody laughing hysterically, that makes me happy. I just like seeing people laugh. It's that dopamine response in my body, that little bit of adrenaline, and that just sense of feeling good. And I don't think we get that enough anymore, especially from content. And that's what this brought me. But there was a few things that came out of this. And the main criticism, I believe, is he's using blindness or people's misfortune to farm views or to make money off of. And I thought that was an interesting take. And of all people to make that accusation towards, it would be Mr. I found that I was a bit surprised by that. I mean, do you think there's any credibility or not even credibility to that accusation, but do you think, they may have a point in there?
No, I think it's pretty cut and dry. I think they're talking out of their arse. I think ask the 1,000 people what they think about that. Do you, Mr. Beast got, I'm going to make the numbers up, so I don't know, 100 million views instead of 10 million. He used you to get an extra 10x on his view count. How do you feel about that? Well, I can see again. I don't give, I don't care. And all these people with money, like, look, I think, let's kind of take a step back and see what this is about. That people think that you should only give if there's nothing to. Well, there are some people that think that you should only really give something or give to charity if there's nothing back on it for yourself. Like this, I can't remember what the term is now. It's escaped me, but this way of giving without wanting anything in return. And that's a beautiful way to live, but I would argue that's impossible as well, because you selfishly feel good off the fact of doing something, so you get something off the back of that. And why not lean into that? Why is that a bad thing? So if you give money to charity or you help someone out, like I've jumped on free calls with people to help them with coaching when I normally charge, and it just feels lovely and warm inside to do that. Like knowing that you don't have to do it, but selfishly I've done it because it makes me feel good. So I don't see there's anything wrong in that. And why not lean into it? If his thing is making viral videos and raising awareness and letting people know about this, because there might also be people out there that are suffering through this, that heard about it, like your dad or your aunt might have this. And you're like, do you know that this is only a 10-minute thing and it can be done in this way? It can just raise awareness of something when people just think, oh, I'm blind. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, in fact, maybe there is. So not only help those people, you help raise awareness about this issue as well. And it seems like all of these people are very happy that he's done that.
Yeah. I mean, you could say there's times where people give, who are in the spotlight give, and they clearly are doing it or for views specifically, or not even for views, but for their credibility, for their value in sort of the social media marketplace. And I think one of the reasons I think that's a bit massively off the mark with Mr. Beast is he's already successful, and the net worth of his channel, I think somebody offered to pay him like $500 million for his channel at one point.
$1 billion, I think.
Which it was a stupid amount of money. And he's even that his whole view is, I'm just gonna, my whole not profit model, but my whole model is I want to invest all my money into these videos. I want to make more money to reinvest them back into the videos. Everything is about his body of work. And there's nothing, you could say, yeah, he could just do this privately, but that's not what he does. And he doesn't do it necessarily for his persona. He does it because he enjoys making videos. He enjoys making videos that make people happy. So it would be dumb for him to do this and to not make videos about this. And the money he's giving away, yes, he could just give it to them off the camera, but the video is about seeing people, who maybe have had a rough time, given that little bit of a lifeline, given that little bit of happiness. And that's the whole purpose of the video. Why would he do that privately, or why would he do that behind closed doors? It doesn't make sense.
And does anyone honestly think, from the number of years that he's been doing it and what he's made, that he hasn't done that already?
God, yeah.
Do we think that over the last 5 years he may have quite possibly helped people out off camera as well? Just say, hey mate, here's 10 grand, here's 50 grand, and you know what, you can get this as well. Like, I'm sure that he captures a lot of it and to get views, but from what I've understood from the type of person he is, money is just, it's not a driver for him in any way. He's just he uses it so he can do more and then do more and do more. So he wants to create the best videos possible and then change the planet in a positive way. Those are the two massive drivers for him. And like you said, he kind of collides those two. So, just because people accuse him of like having to do things on camera, I don't think that is that means that he isn't doing it off camera as well. But and even if he does, and he'd only ever give a penny on camera, who cares? He's giving money away and he doesn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you were to take an example of someone who is obviously doing that for their own brand, at the end of the day, fine. I agree with you. I mean, you can be critical of people for giving away money. And I think where it is cringy is when you have, let's say, a small-time creator who's desperate for views, giving away a couple $100s to a homeless guy on the street and recording that. I don't criticize them for doing that, but I think you can still have the opinion that they're clearly doing this for selfish purposes. But at the end of the day, the outcome is what it is. Why would I want to complain about that? Is my life that shit that I need to find these, I need to pick on this little section of the internet to just sort of rip apart? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's pathetic criticism personally. Like you said, even if that is the case, that it's something like £100 and someone wants to try and get views, that person has viewed that giving £100 and the value it gives on camera, on or off camera, is worth more than having the money themselves. But ultimately, what has changed is he's given that person that money, £100, and they didn't have that money to start with. So if you take nothing else as a result of that, like I honestly just don't see the problem with it. And if someone is like, even if they are hiding behind it, I really don't want to give that money to the person. Like, here's the other thing: is if they did that on camera and then off the camera, they rip the money back. You see it like, here you go, and then they end the scene, and then fuck, go away, you dirty person. Okay, then you're deceitful. But I think if they're just giving the person money, like, good for them.
Yeah, they say they Mr. Beast arranges the transport to the hospital, gets everybody there, chucks them 10 grand, and then says, "Yeah, you need to find your own way home. I'm sorry, you're on your own. Good luck with that suitcase of 10,000 pounds. You'll be fine, I'm sure." It's not like that. But people complain, and people look at it. It's an interesting topic that he chose, because it does bring into question, which we're going to go on to the Tim Pool video. Hasan Piker, which he's going to comment on in a bit, was critical of, and I don't think it was Mr. Beast, and I think Tim Pool does, in my view, I agree with his assessment on how he's assessed this. We're going to go really far down into the looking glass on this one, because we're watching somebody who's watched somebody. But it's an interesting take on the conversation, and Hasan Piker was angry that this surgery that's worth, how much was it? Was $1,000? $10,000? What was it?
I don't remember how much the individual. Maybe it'll come up.
Well, let's watch the Tim Pool video, because there's a few takes that I had from this that aren't necessarily related to the eye surgery. I do like Tim Pool. But in this video that we're going to watch, I'm reminded that Tim Pool still is a political talking head to some degree. And no matter what, I remember thinking when I watched this, and again, I like Tim Pool, but we are going to hear the word maybe Biden at some point, and we're talking about Mr. Beast's eye thing. So in my head, I'm like, I wonder how long it takes before we hear the term or the name Joe Biden. So let's see if that comes up when we're talking about Mr. Beast's video on eyesight or helping people being able to see. So I'm going to hit play here.
Hasan Piker, because he expressed some disdain over the circumstance around Mr. Beast and curing blindness and all that stuff. So I'll give you the quick gist, and then I want to show you what Hasan had to say, because I somewhat agree with Hasan on this one, and I think it's something we definitely should be talking about. CNN reports YouTube star Mr. Beast helps 1,000 blind people see again by sponsoring cataract surgeries. Dude, that's awesome. I'm a big Mr. Beast fan. I have my criticisms of him. What I don't like is he's done these things where he really treats this money so trivially in such a way that's somewhat condescending to people who don't have access to this. Not a big fan of that, but he does a bunch of really good things.
Do you agree with that take about Mr. Beast? Like, would you say that it's a fair take that he's treating this money? And I think what he's saying is he's downplaying the value of that money to people who would value it more than he does.
Well, I don't care. Well, he would though, wouldn't he? Because it is less to him. So what you? It's quite obvious. It's just it seems to this quite a silly statement. Of course, $1,000 or 10,000 or $1 million is less to him than anyone else because he earns more. So yeah, it's you're somehow making other people feel bad. Like, he's given the money away, and his valuation is going to be very different, as Jeff Bezos would be to him. What they would spend money on is very different, but that's you can use that in any field about anything. So you could say, well, Hugh, you're quite strong, and then Eddie Hall, a strong man, could look at me going, you're actually quite weak. It's like, well, I find that degrading. It's like, well, no, it's just of course he's going to think what strong is and what it isn't is totally different as it would to someone else. It's so, I don't really understand the statement, to be honest.
I think you could say the same thing about Andrew Tate, just to throw a bit of a juxtaposition in here, in that he spends 20-30 grand on a watch, or even $1 million on a watch.
More than 20 and 30, it'd be hundreds of thousands of pounds on a watch. Yeah. Well,
actually, I know I did see a video where he or people are spending $1 million on, like, somebody who has a lot of money spending millions on things that you could argue are just accessories. Now, you can say that it's an investment piece. Fine. I think if you're buying a watch at $1 million, but I think if you're buying a watch at the £1 million side of the market, you're not. I don't know that that's an investment piece at that point, because
how many watches do you think would be made at that level?
Not a lot
by that creator. So therefore there's scarcity. So there's low demand, and what goes the demand and supply curve. So if you have very low demand, i.e. there's only one watch worth $1 million by this producer in this year, and the supply is very low. Low demand. Low supply, then you get high demand, so then price rockets up. So it is an investment, is the truth.
So maybe I need to shut up.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what me and you think about the price of watch or whether it's ridiculous or not, because I wouldn't pay that money. But it's irrelevant, because also £1 million to them might be a month. Well, for Andrew Tate, it isn't even a month. It might be a week's worth of work. So would you spend what you earn in a week on a watch? And what you often find is that with the very wealthy people, what they would spend on some items is actually far less than what you would spend or anyone else would spend on a car in comparison to what you earn over the course of a month or a year. So again, I think it's, I don't agree with him whatsoever why he's staying there.
No, I think that's a good example of why my example was poor. I think if we were maybe to take it and put it towards, let's say, 20 grand for a first class flight on Emirates, that would probably be a better example of another way that somebody with money could be perceived as, not respecting the value of money and just sort of putting it towards something that's not.
Disagree, because again, because if you have £20,000 and you earn 100 to £1 million a month, and that gets you straight through, you save time going through the system. You have a higher caliber of service at the end of it, where you're able to work and do other extra little bonuses. You have less of the drag that's involved and the stress around money, which you can focus more on doing something else because your time is worth more money. So that's what people go private as well, which you could spend, say, 1,500 on a first class, or you could spend 25K on a private flight. Why didn't you spend 10%, 5% of that going first class? It was like, well, because I can literally get my driver there. I walk onto the flight, I go there, and I walk off, and I can work the whole time. I can make phone calls, no queues. Time equals money type of thing. So again, it might seem excessive, and to many people it may be, but there are reasons behind doing that, even if it's nothing more than just to take away some stress from what can be a stressful situation.
Yeah, because I can do that same thing on a business class flight for 1/10 of the cost.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, and are there benefits to going first class over business class?
So I've done this recently and I couldn't find any. I actually think I almost preferred the business class product.
But may someone else prefer the first class product?
But that's, and I have no problem with them preferring it, but I'm trying to compare it to his criticism that Mr. Beast is devaluing money by giving it to someone who might need it more than they do. And I would argue that that's no different than choosing to fly first class over business class. That's their choice. They have that money to spend. They can afford it. That's not a problem. But that's how they choose to spend their money. And I think you could equate spending, the extra 15 grand on first class on, let's say, Emirates, to that of him giving away 10, 15 grand to somebody who actually needs it. It's not as if he's taking that money and dumping it out of a skyscraper and letting everybody.
I don't like the stuff where
letting everybody run around and try to grab it. He's specifically giving it to somebody who does need that money. And I think that you can say that that's no different than deciding to buy a first class flight over a business class flight. I'm desperate to make my metaphor work is what I'm trying to get to, Hugh. And you're not helping me in any way.
I'm seeing that. And I'm not playing ball, buddy. I think I've got specific views when it comes to money. I'm on a minority, but sadly I'm right. And when people earn more, they'll kind of understand like how it works as well. So
sadly, you might be, from your opinion, correct. Yes, I get that. Yeah. I understand what you're saying with the private flights. I think if you are so if you have a recognizable face, you will waste time having to go through the rigmarole of being recognized and not being able to get work done and not being able to just that's a big stress to not have your own private space. If you're somebody who wouldn't be recognized and you decide that you're going to pay for it, and the reason I went to flights, because I think you're right about the luxury watch, those are investments, and there's a supply and demand issue when you have a small number of items in the marketplace and that has a specific value. I can't argue with that. But if you're not somebody who's recognized, and this is a subjective view, and this is down to my recent experience, the business class and the first class product are negligibly different, in my view. Slightly bigger seat, but you get plenty of room in business class. And I think that's your right. And I get why people would upgrade their flight. But to me, that is, if anything, more cavalier with your money than giving your money to somebody who needs it.
Yeah, I mean, there are loads of examples. You could get what you could say a man, like a male model, like Chris Hemsworth for me is like, you look at this man and you're like, that's a man, really good looking, hunky man, big built, can kind of get, and he's a famous movie star, charismatic, but, also quite humble, seems likes a bit of banter, just got it all going for him. Could kind of have any woman in the world. And yet there'd be what you could class as 8 out of 10s or 9 out of 10s. From a female attractive scale, throwing themselves in and be like, no, you're not for me. And we might look at them and go, how could you turn her down? Yeah. How could you do that? And you're like, well, because I've got a 10 at home, or because I only go for 10s, and because I can get any woman I want. I don't go for anyone. You're like, well, they're still really attractive. Well, they might be for you, but I'm, I hold out for this. So is he wrong and we're right, or perhaps he's just coming at it from a different perspective because he's dealing with a different set of circumstances, which was what I think is right. There's neither of us, there's no wrong in that. It's just that he's coming at it from a totally different perspective.
It's interesting metaphor, and I'm going to just go off on a slight tangent here. If you could have any, now of course you and I are with pretty much.
I mean, sure, yeah, we're pretty much there, right?
Yeah, we're where we want to be. We
95% of the way there.
95%. I'm talking about our current relationships. Well, oh no, you're talking about us, that being the
Women.
finished article. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. You know, 95%.
We're 95%.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And just want to stress to anybody
least.
before you make any comments in this video, beauty is subjective. So you cannot be right about agreeing or disagreeing with us. If we say it's true, it is true. Now, that being said, let's say we could de facto say we're single and we're 100%ers. We are Liam Hemsworth, or what's his name? Liam, the Australian guy.
Yeah, Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah, if you could correct me a little faster, that'd be great. I don't know. I can't remember. I think we know who we're talking about. The pretty Australian guy who plays in the Marvel movies. Thor, right?
Thor.
Yeah, Thor. I reckon, and I reckon because let's argue that he could actually have any woman that he wants. I would argue that the woman that he would end up with would probably not be as attractive as we would perceive. Because I would find if I was able to win anybody over, I'd want somebody who looked commercially attractive, like really going out of their way to look the part, would put me off a little bit. I would actually be more inclined to focus on if they're interesting or not. And if anybody is really going, like when you see those Instagram models who are just putting it on, it puts me off a bit. And I reckon Liam, I would reckon Liam maybe. I bet his pick in women isn't going to be what we would expect.
So to start with, I need to pull us up because Liam's his brother. It's Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth, thank you.
So that's what, when we're saying Liam, that's why I was like, that isn't right. That's his brother. I think they're one of three, right? So it's Chris Hemsworth we're talking about. And that again is a subjective view, and you're making a comment, and it's like you saying, if I were Jeff Bezos, I would be doing this with my money. Like, you've got any fucking idea of what that's like? Like you can't offer an opinion. It's like,
I can.
You know, it's like with footballers, you can't, because you don't know. Like, I would do this. You might as well go blah 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 blah. You have no idea. So you can offer an opinion, but it's worth nothing, is what I'm saying.
That's not true.
Until you're in that situation, you don't know. You don't know what it'd be like to, if you were a 10 out of 10. Like, here's the thing, right? Because I get into this with.
Well, we're keep in mind, you've just said that we were 9.5 out of 10. I have a lot of experience de facto.
We're almost there. We're exactly right. So this is a common thing that comes up with footballers, and they've been cheating on their wives, their attractive wives, and people are like, oh, how could you cheat on them? And what a lot of other people don't understand is that they might have 10 women in the evening when they go out throwing themselves at that person, and they were like, well, but you don't cheat. But have you had 10, incredibly, attractive women throw themselves at you day in, day out, with the promises of, you can go here in this space, no one will see, you can just do whatever, we'll keep it stum. No, until you're living through that process, until you've walked a mile in their shoes, then don't have an opinion. Like, until you've actually done that, you're saying I have an opinion. Well, you do, but it's worth nothing because you've not done it. You can say, if I were a pregnant woman, Sean, okay, I wouldn't scream. Okay, I'm telling you, I wouldn't do drugs. And I wouldn't scream. They're all wusses. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to that. It means nothing because I'm a man.
Straw man. This.
It means nothing because I can't ever get to that position. So it's what I think. We can sit and judge what it's like to have loads of money or to be super attractive, but until you're living that lifestyle, your opinion means nothing.
There's a few things to unpack here. One,
unpack away.
The example that you've given, if anything, kind of backs up what I was saying, because their value in women isn't necessarily down to how they look. If they have the most attractive person, and this is, I'm forgetting the point where I shouldn't have an opinion on this about footballers cheating, because I'm not a footballer and I don't know what it's like to be a 10. But they're cheating not because of how that person looks or they're a perfect 10 out of 10. There's other factors that go into that, but to say that you can't have an opinion about, or you can't have an opinion until you've walked you walked in their shoes. I mean, we're technically speaking, we are doing a show that's offering an opinion about Mr.Beast giving away tens of thousands or millions of dollars, and that's not something well, you may be able to do that at some point. I may be able to do that at some point, but we're not there yet. So I think it's not fair to say we can't have an opinion.
Yeah, so you corrected me on that, and you were right to. And here's me rephrasing it. It's not that you can't have an opinion. It's just your opinion is worth very little. Is what it is. So it's like people expressing the opinion. So I can have my express about
to that person.
but it means so little. No, like my opinion is so invaluable. It has so little value because I haven't been through that process. And actually, Mr. Beast's opinion on giving money would mean far more than me, or how Jeff Bezos would say, well, I disagree. His is, he's gone through it. He understands. So, I think until I love that saying, people judge before walking a mile in their shoes. And it's this judgment. It's casting the judgment and you really not having any clue and you thinking you know what you do. But the reality is you don't. And until you actually been through it, you wouldn't know. So yeah, we're entitled to an opinion, but just bear in mind it's worth a lot less than people that have actually been through it expressing theirs.
I think you've contextualized that because I think there's a difference here between having an opinion about something versus judging somebody. So judging somebody is you are giving a verdict on their behavior, and that's it's a bit more de facto than saying if I was in this position or I'd like to think I would do this. I think that's a completely different thing.
I think that is a judgment, is it not?
Yeah, but it's a different kind of judgment. You're judging somebody's behavior, whereas if I'm saying if I was in that position, here's probably what I think I would do. I think there's a differentiation there, and I think that's fair. If you're judging somebody, you're making a decision, and this is where I tend to annoy the shit out of my wife, and probably even you or anybody else to that degree. And you'll know me as being famously on the fence about a lot of things. And the reason I'm on the fence is specifically because of that. I don't like to make definitive statements about people's situations because I don't know what it's like to be in their position. However, I like to opine on things, and I think there's a difference.
Opine. What's that?
Yeah, I like that word. Yeah, it's what you would. So I think this is more of a legal thing. So if you're called into court as a not a character witness, an expert witness, you can on testimony you can opine about something, but give your opinion based on your expertise. What has happened here? So I can opine on something, which I think is the shortened version of opinion. I could totally be wrong.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So I feel like opining on something and making a judgment about somebody's character, that's where I feel like you need to be aware that, you don't know what you would do in that position, but you can opine on that.
We can. And it's just that expert thing is just funny, like us giving, people that aren't medically trained giving advice, or people that don't understand people that don't understand what they're talking about, saying what should be done and what they would do in a situation. It's just a weak argument, And and by the way, I don't find it irritating. I find it endearing. I like that about you, Sean, because you will at least fight the other side of the story. You'll look at it from another perspective. You're open to that. I'd like to think that I'm similar when it comes to that.
I think so.
Yeah. I think I'm always open to hearing the other side of it, and I try not to, like, say, when people are like trashing footballers for cheating or for so and so doing this, or so Mr. Beast giving away loads of money. I always like to think, well, do you know what it's like to be them?
But that's a good example of why I would say it's interesting how we get like 20 minutes of content off of one sentence. Because that to me, that footballer's metaphor to me is a good example of how I feel like you can perceive somebody as, how you can feel somebody is not valuing money or their situation or their time, or valuing money, sort of the core of it. And in a way, I could argue that Mr. Beast is valuing money more because he says, I don't need this money. These people do. Therefore, this money, it's almost like a minimalist activity. Like if I had this phone case and it just sat in my drawer because I might want to use it someday, which I guess with money too, you could make an argument that you've got a lot of money, you should be investing it, doing this, that, and the other with it. But this case is adding value to nobody. It's sitting in my drawer. Chances are I'm probably never going to use it. I'm probably going to have to get a new phone in a couple of years, but I could sell this and give it to somebody who it would value, to where there is value. So minimalists would say, why are you holding on to something you're never going to use and never going to need when somebody else could have that? Now, that's not me going down a socialist road and saying everybody with money needs to give it away. But I think it's not devaluing money to decide to take your resource and share it with somebody who needs it. That's a personal decision that he's made. And I don't think that's flippant.
And I think he's perfectly entitled to do that.
You know, if anybody stayed and listened this long to our opinion on that one sentence, you're a fucking gamer.
Hardcore fan.
Already. All right, play.
It's like, oh, you want $10,000 to like get your daughter's, surgery? Well, then you got to stand on one foot and hoot like a chimp, huh? He didn't literally do that, but there are things like that. I find
pause a second. Okay, again, that he's never done that. Okay, it's always a game show, and people are entitled there. They don't need to play that. Would you like to?
They're not needy players.
He's not like right, dance with me, monkey dance, and then throwing money in their face. He's playing. He's making competitions. He's trying to win views. That's his whole point, and making exciting. And money adds stakes to it. So the more money that's on the line, the higher drama and stakes because of how life changing it is.
Yeah.
So he's playing it from an entertainment perspective. He's not. Like he does challenge people. That he pushes them to the edge, but they don't need to do that. There's always a way out. He's very conscious about how he treats other people. So I think that's a little over the top from my perspective. I don't know what you think, Sean.
Yeah, well, he actually, because I watched, there's a creator that I followed from early on. His name's Leon Lush, and I really like Leon. And he's just comedic commentary guy. And he's got about 2 million, 3 million subs. And he was at that point where he was right around 1 million. And they did the stand in a circle, like stand in this little circle for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And and it was cool because you could see his video from his making of process with it. And it was really good because you could see Jimmy Donaldson in the background. And again, as I've seen him in 100% of the content, I've seen him outside of the actual videos. Seems like a really lovely guy. And these are all creators that he generally tends to pull in on these challenges. People that, he thinks it'll help their notoriety. It'll give them some videos and it's smart because he's somebody like Leon Lush is going to add viewers to his viewership by pulling in all of these other smaller creators from like 20,000 to 1 million subs. So it's not as if and I think that's the contextual point you're making. He's not, going around picking up homeless guys in a van and saying, "Listen, if you can keep your hand on this car, I'll give it to you." He's getting people
and laughing at them as he does it and teasing.
He's like behind a mirror, taking the piss out of him, and that's not how it is. But I think I don't think Tim's making a big thing of it, but I think he's making the point that he finds that content probably a little bit cringe, and I understand that.
Okay,
yeah, fine.
When it's like,
so I think that he doesn't like it.
You gotta sit in the store and not move, and then you can get money. And I'm just kind of like, this whole idea is poor people. So it's like, dude, the dude did a
So again, I just really, because I'm a fan, I don't think he's ever taken a poor person and made them play for money. If anything, I think every time there's poor people involved, he's just given them money. I think that's fair to say, from his perspective.
Squid Games parody, but like very much of what he does is like in a similar space. But that's my criticism. I think Mr. Beast does a lot of awesome stuff. I think the idea of tipping people tons of money and making content off it is awesome. So Mr. Beast, not positive. I'm not trying to rag on the guy. I'm just saying like he's not perfect. Check this out. And then we'll read a little bit more about the cataract surgery. So actually, I should read this so you can understand the context before showing you what Hasan Piker said. YouTube star Mr. Beast is making the world clearer for 1,000 people. The content creator's latest stunt is paying for cataract removal for 1,000 people who were blind or near blind but could not afford the surgery. We're curing 1,000 people's blindness, said Mr. Beast. The video features touching before and after footage of patients seeing with clear vision after finishing the surgery. I think it's got like 50 million views. It's ridiculous. It's huge. In the days and weeks after my own cataract surgery, I was stunned by how bright and beautiful and vivid the world was. He said, this is Levinson, what were we talking about? Jeff Levinson, an ophthalmologist and surgeon, worked with Donaldson to perform the first round of surgeries in Jacksonville, Florida. Levinson has coordinated the Gift of Sight program for 20 years, which provides free cataract surgery for uninsured patients who are legally blind due to cataracts. Levinson got a call from a member of Donaldson's team. That's Mr. Beast, by the way. His name is Jimmy Donaldson. In September, I had never heard of Mr. Beast, so I almost hung up, but I gratefully did not hang up. They started by calling homeless shelters and free clinics to create a list of patients in the Jacksonville area who needed cataract surgery but could not afford it. Eventually, they had a group of 40 patients, and Levinson performed all of their surgeries in a single day, starting at 7 a.m. and ending at 6 p.m. That's amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Let's pull up this year, Hasan Piker.
So I've only been introduced to Hasan Piker recently. My algorithm has taken me down some of the, I think watching the Andrew Tate stuff, he's been somebody who's debated Andrew Tate, Hasan Piker. I would say I don't know if you've heard of Hasan before.
Never heard of it. No.
I've seen him debate Andrew Tate and a few other people, and he's an intelligent guy. So it's I think he's on the other side of the spectrum to Tim Pool. I would say I think Tim Pool is definitely on the conservative side of this commentary community, and he's sort of on the other side.
You watch this video, you go, oh, how cute and how nice. I watched the video and I'm filled with rage.
What's wrong with you?
That we shut off access to a 10-minute procedure because we paywalled it and decided that like some people just simply can't get it.
So before Tim has his comment on that, I mean, what was your takeaway from that view?
Yeah, like when he said enraged, my response was much like the lady sat next to him, like, what? How? Like, I just felt warm and fuzzy inside. But then as soon as he said that, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then when he expands, yeah.
See, having lived in the States, and there was a period after I failed out of college and before I got a real job, I had no health insurance. And I actually, there was a position where I ended up with, I think it was something like $10,000 in debt because I had pneumonia. And I was in a bad way. I needed to be treated. And I understood the second he said that, what he was talking about, because now I'm living under the National Healthcare Service in the United Kingdom, and I have private healthcare. I've got lots of healthcare I can use. I'm swimming in healthcare. So I understood exactly what he said. And I 100% thought it was a spot on point, regardless of what I think about Hasan Piker. I couldn't agree more with, it's a bit hyperbolic, a bit dramatic the way he made it.
Yeah, I'm enraged with people's
yeah.
happiness.
Yeah, so angry. Yeah, I don't think he was, but I think he was annoyed by it, same as I find it annoying. But it's not a new thing. Maybe, and he lives in the States, so I think so. He should understand that. But
it is so insanely frustrating that it's up to like one YouTube guy to like.
Oh, she's annoying, by the way. Already, I didn't even pay attention to her the last time, but I'm like, what is that noise in the background? That's her. That's her squeaking in the background. It's annoying me. Am I being too critical?
Well, I've only heard her once, so yeah. But you probably heard this more than me. But she's not annoying me just yet.
Maybe I'm gonna go back a bit.
That like some people just simply can't get it. It is so insanely frustrating that it's up to like one YouTube guy to like decide to make content out of it that people who are too poor can't just fucking see. That's insane. Anyway, sorry. It's just like a deeply, deeply frustrating concept.
He's right. He's not ragging on Mr.Beast. Dextero says Twitch streamer Hasan explained why he's filled with rage from watching Mr.Beast's newest video where he cures 1,000 people's blindness. He's right. Why is it up to one YouTube guy to make content off of this, which will generate money to do that? It's mind-blowing to me. And a lot of people are ragging on Hasan, like, they're like, oh, he should be mad about this. Mr.Beast did a good thing. He's not ragging on Mr.Beast. He's saying, why is it up to him? Why? Now, I don't completely agree with Hasan's politics on this one. You know, he says we've cut off access to that. I don't view it that way, but I view it like this. I'm watching so much of our money as American citizens be thrown all over the world for gender studies programs, for
gender studies. Hold on. Gender studies. Bingo. We got right-wing gender studies. What's next? I'm just ragging on them because when I watched Tim Pool, I'm like, when are we going to start bringing in the catchphases? There's gender studies
in the Middle East. And I'm saying to myself, what can we do with $100 billion that we wasted in Ukraine? Now, I know I can hear look, I got Ukrainian friends and they don't like to hear me say stuff like that because they're like, we need you. We don't want to die. We don't lose our country. And I say, my guys, we're not you. I'm sorry. We're supposed to have your back. That I get. There's a treaty. If they give up their nukes, we come to their defense, NATO. And I'm just frustrated that the U.S. is involving itself in so much of this overseas, so many of these overseas quagmires. And this won't even wipe out the planet. If Russia says it's a border country, we will not back down. We've known that they wanted a land bridge for 10 years. The Hunter Biden laptop reveals that they knew about it for a long time. This is a long time coming.
I didn't expect the Hunter Biden laptop to make it into the reason why I'm okay or not okay with Jimmy Donaldson giving away money for blind people. That caught me off guard a bit.
But, okay, even that.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Hunter Biden. There we go. Bingo. Said, here we go.
Gee golly. Everything seemed to stop in this conflict the moment that Donald Trump got elected. But here's what I see.
Oh, wait. Donald Trump. There we go. We're answering a question about Mr. Beast paying money for blindness, and we've gotten Hunter Biden, Donald Trump, and gender studies.
I don't think we're cutting off people necessarily.
So I hope I'm not annoying you, taking the piss out of it, but this just
you're not annoying me. I don't get the references about. I've never seen this guy before.
These are all just very conservative. These are conservative talking points that, and to be fair, I understand his point that he's trying to make with we're sending money to Ukraine and he wants to, why can't we use this money for things like this, which I think he's getting to.
Like if we started from baseline, if we were we're not involved in this war, we're not spending money, and you get some frugal government that's like, guys, the budget is tight. We're not going to spend money on cataract surgeries if people can't afford it. I'm sorry, we just don't do that. We can't afford it. I'd be like, well, who am I to tell my fellow countrymen to give their hard-earned dollars, through the process of inflation or however the U.S. is doing it with the Federal Reserve, but just to give their buying power and their value to strangers, not to me. You give your money as you see fit. I'm not I don't, I'm not 100% on board with taxation as theft, but I'm, pretty much not a fan of where we've gone as a country and how extreme everything is.
I really find that to be a really unevolved view or a very inconsistent view on taxes or what we should spend money on. I'm not commenting on his view on spending money overseas versus spending money on citizens. It's that comment that he made, I'm not interested in, I'm going to try to paraphrase it because I won't say it right, but the bit where he said, I don't want to tell somebody how to spend their money on people, poor people who need, I don't want to be forced to tell them to do that. And I think that is a really poor take because there is a shit ton of stuff he is happy that he's being forced to pay as part of his taxes. And to look at that in isolation is just, an add-on option that has no return benefit for the taxpayer, I think is a very linear way to look at it.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. From my end, I don't really know. Like, I've never looked into it in detail of like where the tax dollars go. I mean, some of the stuff you hear doesn't sound right, and I don't like them cutting back, like here in the UK, cutting back on police, cutting back on NHS, cutting back on this, and you hear then politicians get a raise several years ago, and I don't understand that. Whilst the NHS weren't having a raise at the same time, that doesn't make any sense to me. But it's one of the benefits of living in a developed country is that you get to pay tax. It's not that we enjoy it, but there's a lot of extras that go along with that. And I think if in doubt, like if you're unhappy with it, you can it's something that I think people forget about is that you can find somewhere else. Like you'll go and there'll be other issues with that country. Like it's extremely complicated to get all of this in line. His underlying point of like, could that money be better spent? I think is probably not even probably is correct. Undoubtedly, it could. But who has the perfect answer? Like no one. It will just depend on where you're going towards views on environment, education, healthcare, whatever. There are probably many things that can be done. It's just quite a sad fact that, like the chat, was it Hasan raising that, it's just infuriating that it's something that's so simple that can be done. Like surely is there not a way to do that? I think the war, my understanding, which is very, very limited, is that it is for the globe's benefit that we help Ukraine fight them off on their own, and that if they work through Ukraine, then it's unlikely that it's just going to stop there. But we can't intervene, because if we US or whoever went into war with them, my understanding of what I've heard is that people that know what they're talking about say that that could be, the catalyst to really tip it over. We need to kind of support Ukraine to do it themselves. Again, I don't know how true that statement is. It kind of it makes sense, but I don't really understand what I'm talking about from there. So I know that this, I understand that the treaty they signed to give up their nuclear weapons, to be shown as like more of a neutral state, like we will give up arms. But the problem, which, I don't want to derail it, Sean. We don't have to go down that path, which I think is a silly option personally, that if there are people out there like the big bully with the weapons, then everyone wants a weapon because that kind of counters it. You say, well, no one should have them. But the problem is the bad guys do. So you need them to counter it, because if only the bad guys have them, then you're in it's a bad situation. And I understand that my level of understanding was that they signed that treaty and they would be protected by those that have them, such as the US and UK. Actually, I think we are obliged to make sure that they're okay.
Well,
I think I wouldn't want to, the thought of spending money on arms and everything when there are people that, obviously I hate that, but I think he made a comment a little bit earlier, like we're wasting $1 billion. I don't think it's waste. So if that money wasn't spent and you cleaned every single person's cataract lens up, and then Russia bulldozed through Ukraine, is our problem resolved in that area? May there never be an issue? It might actually escalate, and there could be a full-on war with far greater consequences. So I'm not saying that's what will happen, or that I know what I'm talking about, but I have to disagree from what I've heard with what he's saying. You might be able to expand a bit on this, Sean. You might know a bit more than me, but
I mean, I did do a bit of reading on. I wouldn't say I'm schooled on what's happening in Ukraine. I know. I mean, what I will say to your point, I think the fact that there's nuclear weapons in NATO countries, UN countries, is somewhat preventing Russia from being a little bit more liberal with considering using nuclear weapons. I think if they were to, there is a world where I think Putin isn't. I don't know that he's so stable-minded right now. The decision to go into Ukraine as he's done just seems batshit crazy in and of itself. But I think the fact that, let's say, the U.S. And Britain and I don't know what countries have it. Same as you, I'm not completely up to speed. But because there are nuclear weapons that will certainly be firing back at Russia, somewhat, the fact that everyone has them helps us to not use them because they're so final.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's. I think you've touched on a good point, because I feel like it's. And this is where I think sometimes these guys like Tim Pool fall into a bit of a trap, because they're playing the game all the time. So remember when we were talking about doing Konstantin Kizin, and my comment to you when we were messaging was, I've read the headlines, owning libs and things like that, and you said, yeah, well, he plays the game. He plays the game to get the views. And I think people like Tim Pool fall into that, where they know and he's a smart guy, and he does a good job to stay fairly balanced, but he's living in a lot of people's echo chambers, and he's conflating the issue of spending money on citizens with taxpayer money to spending internationally. And like you said, you're spending money on Ukraine isn't just a linear, I'm going to transact this money to Ukraine and it's for this. There's a lot of other things whenever you do business with other countries that come back from that, whether that's commerce or trade or whatever the case may be. And you can agree or disagree with that, but the US and every country is big enough to have a debate over whether we should spend money on Ukraine, and separately, independently, have a discussion on whether we should spend money on curing people's blindness. And to even jump back into that conversation, To look at curing people's blindness as a transactional, rich people spend money, poor people benefit is stupid. Think about, let's say it's $10,000 to do a glaucoma surgery in the US. How much money is that person going to pay in tax dollars over the next 5 years because they can now work? You know, there's a cost benefit analysis with national health care, in my view, that the US or people who are against nationalized health care don't understand. You know, how much are you going to pay to cure someone's cancer when you catch it early versus when they're dying? And in America, you're catching it much later because people don't see doctors because they can't afford health care. And just to finish my point, my tax money, what I pay in taxes, and I have national health care and private health care, is almost exactly the same, if not slightly less than what I pay in taxes in the United States. And I have free health care. So I think there's just, and I've unpacked a hell of a lot of stuff, but there's so many things that I think Tim Pool is missing the mark on. And I think partially it's because he's living in an echo chamber. And I think he has to conflate a lot of things to make his point.
Yeah, it's always, you know, when you pick a side, mate, it's one of the downsides, right? Like he's you know, he's bound by the laws within that, perhaps. I don't know him. This is the first thing I've seen. I could be talking out my ass, but what I say, and it might be pointed at him, but just more generally, like when you select a team, you have that bias, and you know, you just if everyone knows what you're going to say, there's a problem with that. Like you standing at the start joking about, oh, wait for this mention, and then if he's going on to mention it, that's it's a shame that you know everything that's going to come out of someone's mouth, you know.
And I say that of all the conservative speakers, I do have a lot of time for Tim Pool. I think he's very thoughtful. He was one of the people in Joe Rogan that sat with the Twitter executives and was part of that interview with what's his name, the head of Twitter before Elon took over. And there was a woman who was sort of leading the who was on that senior team, and he did a really good job of pushing back at some of their views that they're not, you know, left leaning, or the people that are making the decisions aren't left leaning. I think there's definitely an element of left leaning within Twitter, and I think it's more of a business decision. But Tim Pool did a hell of a good job in a very transactional way, challenging the execs at Twitter. So I do have a lot of time for Tim Pool. I just get disappointed when the likes of him or Konstantin Kizin, like, and you're right. That was exactly when I saw, that was what I thought. And I wanted to make it a point to share that when I first started watching this. I always like to share with you what I'm thinking before I hear what they're going to say. And that was it. I'm like, am I going to hear the word Biden? And I was like, oh shit, it was Hunter Biden. I forgot about that. That was extra points, I think. If it was Joe Biden, yeah, fine. But he went back into 2020 and he pulled the Hunter Biden laptop back up. That's great. Good job, you know, Tim Pool. Let's watch it a little bit longer and see if he said, because I think this is pretty much as far as I've gotten to in this. So let's see where we go. In terms
of the amount of money they take from people and what they do with it. And it's mainly because they're blowing up kids. I look at it this way. Okay, you got the pipes in Flint. They're busted up, lead, Legionnaire's disease, dirty water. You got the pipes in a bunch of different towns that are like that. Newark was bad. And then you come to me and say, you know, look, here's my pitch as the U.S. government. We can fix pipes, get these kids clean drinking water, make America great again, fix our streets, secure.
Make America great again. Got that? I think I have a bingo.
Secure our borders, bring back jobs, reinvest in a New Deal type program. This is why.
New Deal. Okay.
Before they announced the Green New Deal.
I'm only doing this because he's commenting on fucking blindness and Mr.Beast's video, and we've had 6 conservative talking points.
When they were talking about the idea, I was like, you mean to tell me we can work towards energy independence and invest in jobs in this country? I'm like, okay, I'm down for this. Let's see it. And then, of course, it was this woke nonsense about free college for people of color and other stuff. And I'm like, that's not, get out of here. But Hasan's angry. It was 10 minutes to fix this, the eyes of these people with cataract surgery. And instead of spending, how much did he spend on this? He didn't spend 1,000 people. It was probably $1 million. Might have been $10 million. $100 billion on foreign wars in countries we have no business being involved in.
I keep I'm listening to this and I keep thinking, like, the way he's speaking, I could have taken his head and superimposed it on Tom Cruise in Born on the 4th of July. Like it's just like very Vietnam vet who's disgruntled, complaining about foreign wars and spending money.
Yeah, I had no business in doing. I believe you did actually, because I think that's what you signed a treaty to kind of look after them. So I think UK did the same thing, as my understanding. I think there is business behind that. Like if you give up that, we will support you in this area. So it's kind of us doing good to our word, as far as I understand.
He's making a point. Oh, sorry.
I get no, but I get his underlying point though. I feel like could, rather than, let's say if there's 100 billion or whatever the number is, I've got no idea. Let's say it's 100 billion and on wars overseas. Could you just take one of that and put that elsewhere? And I think what we come on to in a moment, like the suggestion that comes up for creative marketing and everything, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I was going to say. I think I don't want to devalue his point that he's, it is all about the stupid amount of money that the U.S. is spending overseas, and making that comparison to issues like the infrastructure, with Flint, Michigan, Newark, those things. And I think that is an extremely fair point to make.
Can I make another point as well?
Yeah.
It pisses me off because it pisses me off. The other point I'd make is that we are being like slightly hypocritical here as well. And that I don't, well, maybe I don't understand the guy. I don't know anything about him or what he does. But when there was criticism of Mr.Beast, and you're like, it's what he does, and he's been perfectly entitled to do that. Like, this Tim might be exaggerating these points to get views. And that's his marker, is that because if he gets more irate and builds up this stuff, like his team will get more behind him and it'll get more views, and that there is an agenda behind all of these points, as well. Like, I think it's probably worth pointing out. He's not just is he claiming to be speaking 100% truthful with nothing else off the back of it? Or is he someone that just generally does, this is pretty much what he thinks, and he just, exaggerates? There's some entertainment value as well, and there's also pulling people along. I mean, I don't know. So maybe we're just looking too literally into some of his points.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think he does, and we'll watch him a bit more here, but I think he does genuinely believe the point he's making about the money we're spending overseas. And I think his bravado is very much down to exactly what you're saying with his brand and him trying to get across, this marketable image. It's going to create great clips. I mean, this vitriol, it's going to create views. And Tim's not a dumb guy, but I think there is a level of authenticity with what he's saying.
Yeah.
So when Hasan gets mad and he's like, we've cut these people off from this, I'm like, look, I don't know what Hasan's position is on funding war in Ukraine. I'm not a fan of Russia. I think Vladimir Putin's the bad guy. I have friends who fled the country and got their families out. I don't like to hear that. I don't like what Russia's doing. I think the answer to this is we don't do business with you. We say no, thank you.
So in what he's referencing with Hasan Piker, it's as if Hasan can't have an opinion about nationalized healthcare without having an opinion on how much money we're spending on Russia. And I think that's massively conflating what he can have an opinion about healthcare, and he can also agree with Tim or disagree with Tim. Actually, let me take it a step back. He can disagree vehemently and think we need to spend more money in Ukraine, and still think we need to spend money on nationalized healthcare.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah, I agree, mate.
Yeah.
The problem is we got ourselves involved in this war. Europe is dependent upon their energy, and so we're in a bind. I get it. It's complicated. But what if we took $10 billion and just paid for people's cataract surgery? That's right. That's what makes me angry.
See, notice he said, and this is, I always like picking up the little bits of language. He said, that's right. So in his head, he wanted to clarify what his audience might be disagreeing with. You want to pay $10 billion for eyesight surgery? That's right. It's an interesting contextual thing I pick up on. He's making sure that the audience is, yeah, you heard me correctly. I said the thing that you didn't think I was going to say. I found that to be an interesting little side. I've just noticed that now.
And that's why I'm like, why are you yelling at Hasan? This government is wasting your money. You've got Hunter and Joe Biden doing energy deals, sending
Joe Biden
natural gas from Louisiana to China. Why aren't we investing in our people? Why aren't we dealing with our border crisis? Why aren't we dealing with jobs in the economy? Why are we spending so much on other countries? And I'll shout out in the old omnibus bills from the previous Congress, $12 million for gender studies. Take the $12 million and cure some people's blindness. I would prefer to.
I just think that's a really poor take. It's just so. I'm taking. You can have a debate about gender studies, fine. And I think if you were to take a look at whatever that money spent for gender studies, it's probably not the nefarious woke bullshit 100%. You know, I'm sure there's people that can make an argument for it in a very contextualized way that makes sense, whether you agree or disagree with it. But it's just we're starting to get into the realms of hyperbole, you know, and I think it's pulling him away from his point about spending money abroad. You know, 12 million on gender studies in the US, as far as the amount of tax money they generate. Like, there is a shit ton of stuff that they're spending 20 million on that's just random and, you know, doesn't necessarily add value to the average citizen. But we chose that one item because the audience needed to hear that item to understand my point.
Okay, so there could have been 50, 100, 1,000 things in between that, but he went, you know, are worth more than that, but he didn't want to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're not going to have an educated discussion on what that 12 million gender studies is. We're just going to assume. Now, I'm making this point because, and it seems like the last couple of weeks I'm getting on my soapbox about the way people are pitching arguments. And personally, it's a big bugbear of mine that people use politics to make points without actually, having a fair conversation about these points. And he chose gender studies because of his audience. And the way they pick gender studies, it's the lesser, it's the greater of the two evils. You know, I think you know what I'm trying to say with that. That is the one I'm gonna add. I'm gonna be able to put gender studies in my YouTube description, and that's gonna conflate, is gonna counter the point I'm making. Yeah, they're spending money on gender studies, but why are we we should be talking about spending money on eyes, not gender studies. It's just an interesting piece to me.
See. That money from gender studies or whatever else in foreign aid be given to homeless and desperate Americans who need cataract surgery.
But it's a straw man, and that is definably a straw man. You have the choice to either give the money to gender studies or help homeless people. So that's the equivalency you now have to decide. I don't like that.
I don't know if Hasan agrees with me. I maybe he's pro-war in Ukraine or whatever. But I'm just saying, on the surface, when he comes out and says it fills me with rage, that it's up to some YouTube guy to make content to do this, and I'm like, preach, brother. Why do we have to hope that some guy on YouTube is going to be the one to help these people? Why is it that we can count on the U.S. government giving multi-billion-dollar contracts to big pharma, but they won't spend a pittance on just helping people see?
You know, he's kind of making the argument for nationalized healthcare, and I don't know if he's doing it intentionally, because the reason the U.S. spends so much on big pharma is it's a commercial enterprise more so than anywhere else. You know, you look at the UK, you look at nationalized healthcare countries, they're pulling their money effectively, and these pharmaceutical companies don't have the option to charge the money they can charge U.S. citizens. So in a weird way, he's making an argument for nationalized healthcare, which I'm not making an argument for against it. I prefer, it's my preference. I think nationalized healthcare is a good thing. But he's making that point. I don't know if he's doing it intentionally or not.
I'm not saying universal healthcare is a solution. I don't know that it is. Maybe some universal basic coverage, I think, can.
Answer that question.
When there's a treatment like this, it takes 10 minutes to cure someone's blindness. Yeah, maybe we should have universal basic coverage. But if you have a complicated illness that requires lifelong treatment, and that's really expensive on the system, maybe we can't afford it. Maybe that's where private supplemental comes in. I don't have all the answers.
And admittedly, he's not. He's being a bit flippant with this, saying, "Look, I'm open to this conversation. I just find it very interesting that he's like, look, if it's simple, fine. But if it's going to kill you, yeah, I'm not so keen on that.
Yeah, and what about, are there any things that cross over? You know, that it can get complicated, right?
Yeah, we can either have like a 10-minute procedure or stage 4 cancer. I think those are our choices again.
All I know is, as long as you're coming out and dumping $100 billion on war, I'm going to come back and say, you give that to me, and I'm going to go cure a bunch of blind people's eyes. I'm going to build bridges. I'm going to build roads. I'm going to create jobs in construction. But we don't do that.
If I was Hasan Piker and I was watching this, I'd be like, I was just asking about Mr. Beast. That's all I'm talking about, man. Why do I have to talk about Russia? Can I not just talk about Mr. Beast?
Yeah, he's talking about healthcare. I think that I think is a fair link.
Yeah.
You know, is that why is a YouTuber having to fund it when surely we should be able to fund that? So I think it's a healthcare thing. And then
but it's the $100 billion though. It's the pool of money. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you, but he's referencing we should be using this war money to fix people's eyes. That's the connection he's making.
That makes me angry, man. So yeah, I'm not gonna rag on Hasan. People are ragging on him. No, get out of here. I am filled with rage. I'm grateful to Mr. Beast. This was awesome. It's a really cool thing to do. I've talked about it for a while. Here's the marketing strategy. Go to a big company, and Mr. Beast should do this and say, give me your marketing budget. Mr. Beast legit pitch. I hope he does this. Go to any big Fortune 500 and say, what's your marketing budget this month? And when they're like 50 million, say, okay, you give me that $50 million. I will give you 100-fold return on what you'd normally get. And then you know what you do? You build a bunch of sustainable housing in low-income neighborhoods. You then buy these properties and create sustainable situations. Now, hold on. I know you can't just put homeless people in houses. I'm saying pay off some people's medical.
He's having an argument with his audience. Like that again, I've just picked up on this. He's having an argument with somebody who would normally disagree with putting homeless people in houses. And I find it interesting that the de facto view is, whoa, you can't put homeless people in houses. They're kind of icky. They're kind of dirty. They're homeless, which means they're lazy. So we don't want to waste resource on lazy, icky people.
Oh, I thought that my interpretation of that was they've got more issues going on than a home, than a shelter. So that isn't going to fix the problem just chucking them in a home. Like you need to help them. I don't know.
I don't think that's far off of it, but we've just had this in that 3 or 4 second exchange. We've litigated and solved the question and answer of can you put homeless people in a home that's been built for them? We've already determined that of course you can't, but hear them out. Because I think people are homeless for a lot of different reasons. And to be able to say that what you're talking about, I think is a fair discussion to have, but he's already figured that out. And he's then trying to win you over because of course we agree you can't put poor people or homeless people, into a home that's been built for them. That's bonkers. There's no benefit to that whatsoever. We live in a bubble.
Debt. Give people life-changing surgery. Save a child who needs a heart. If we turned marketing into a do-good competition, I've long talked about how I would love that. Imagine, you got Coca-Cola, and they're like, in order to market effectively, we decided to follow in Mr. Beast's footsteps and use our $50 million marketing budget this month. I don't know if it's 50 million,
good.
But it'd be massive like that, to do as much good as possible. So we hired cleanup crews to go into Chicago's South Side and start cleaning up trash, filling potholes. Remember, I think it was KFC that did that. Imagine if then Pepsi had to come out and be like, hey, whoa. You think you're going to upstage us? We're going to take our marketing budget, throw 10 million on top, and then we're going to go repair, these broken pipes in these houses and fix the water. Imagine if Pepsi was like, oh yeah, we're going to fix the pipes in Newark. The amount of attention that would be generated from this would be massive.
Yeah.
Instead, they buy billboards with a smiling person drinking a soda. I would love to see a do-good competition. I'm just maybe a little idealistic, but I'll leave it there. Shout out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good. I have a few thoughts on that, but I agree with him, and I think that's a clever way. It's a clever pitch, really.
It is.
Because if you look at the amount of money Coca-Cola spends to make sure its brand recognition is there, the company that you actually refer to is like a cola, like is a Coke. You ask for a Coke in a restaurant, whether they have Pepsi or cola or Coke, and they're spending that much money on brand recognition. It does make you question, how much more return would they get if they did what Mr. Beast did? Because Mr. Beast has clearly been successful advertising, giving money away. It's only helped his brand, and he's probably worth enough to start a space program easily. And that's been his whole model. And I think that's a really brilliant observation.
It's so clever. Just again, it's just leaning into that side, isn't it? It's where there is money, and just trying to tap into that spirit. Like, where's his point on that could be devaluing? Aren't they devaluing money by spending 50 million pounds? Look, they're getting value. They can do what they want with that. That's not for you to say. If they want to do that, if there was a return that would be better than what they're currently doing with the billboard, then they would do that. And perhaps, who knows, they might be overlooking it. It might be a fantastic idea. It might fall flat on its face and not get any publicity. My hunch is that it would probably work. And I'd love to see someone go for it and have the balls and try it, just for 1 month.
That would be incredible.
Like you said, if they didn't have that, it wouldn't be the end of Coke, would it? Like it's not like, oh, who are Coke again this month? I haven't heard of them this month. Like it's so ingrained on you. You could think that the cost to benefit ratio, what's the cost of it? Well, they'd be paying that anyway. Are we going to lose sight of who they are for that month? You think no? I think they'd probably shine more of a light, because of whatever they've done in this, the kind of the transformation is before and after, and they could do this kind of stuff. They could get someone like Jimmy and lean on him with his 100 million subscribers. So at least those 100 million people will be kind of bought into it as well. And he's drinking Cokes the whole time, and they're giving out free Cokes or whatever. We're saying Coke. This could be anyone, right? They've used Coke. It can be literally any massive company. But I think it's a fantastic idea. I love it.
Yeah. It's. I'm not going to rag on, just to use his term, on Tim, because it is sort of contradictory to what he was saying about Mr. Beast, but then saying his model of selling yourself, helping other people. It is a bit of a
who cares? Who cares if they do? Oh, Coke are like, yeah, but they're only peddling themselves. Yeah, but they're helping the city. They're helping homeless. They're helping what? Like, let's give them the credit they deserve, right? Like
that's the brilliance of his opinion, though, because you're doing what you would normally do to advertise yourself, but the benefactors of that, in addition to you, instead of spending money on these, on these ridiculous marketing campaigns, you still use the same avenues and you still get the number of views, but you take a big chunk of that money and you put it towards building communities. I mean, Christ, if you're building 100 free homes in Chicago, slap Coca-Cola on the side of it. I don't give a shit.
I was about to say, right, you could have like some little gimmick, like free Coke on a Friday night. You could have a Coke-shaped building. You could have a whatever, like you permanently have something up there, a sponsorship. And you're like, well, that's disgusting to have homes with Coke on it. They're homes because they weren't there before. Yeah. So, and it's kind of up to Coke if they want it to look like that. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. And Mr. Beast has shown that kind of concept, there's a massive market for it and it's hugely successful. So you can't help but think, would it not work in the corporate world? And then his example of Coke, if they were to go in, then you have a Pepsi, and then you have, oh, okay, well, Amazon, I'm going to jump on this, or then Apple, I'm going to jump on it. You get this kind of competitive spirit going between these, these huge companies. Yeah, it's I really love it, and I really hope that like this little pitch kind of reaches Jimmy, and he does go out pitching to some of these large companies to see what he can do. I think it's doable. I think he would do it.
I think too, the one thing that I'd love to, because I don't think he's looking at it this way. This is a replacement. Society shouldn't be dependent on, which it's such a weird, again, I love this word, juxtaposition. He is a conservative commentator, really. Yeah, and I'm sure he's a bit more nuanced, Tim Pool is than other political commentators. But the idea that you're giving ownership of people who have money to spend money on people who are less fortunate, it's almost like a way of selling, taxing the rich to give to the poor, but you're not forcing them to do that. It's finding a way to fulfill that model, that a greater use of tax money for those that are less fortunate. It almost validates that view by making it a voluntary action by those that have the means. And it's interesting in that it is his daydream or his dream scenario, which you and I agree would be just an incredible scenario. Is that scenario that everybody who doesn't want to spend extra tax money for, let's say, nationalized healthcare want to see? They want, this to be a voluntary action. And, as long as people are giving their money away, it's voluntary. And in this world, we're giving a shit ton of money to help a lot of people. That's better than having to pay more taxes for nationalized healthcare. It's interesting. At the end of the day, we all agree that, yeah, it's good to help people who need help, to bring those people up. It's the means with which they do that is where that the rubber meets the road in that debate. Are you being taxed and forced to do that? Or are you doing it voluntarily and it's mutually beneficial? So in that situation, Coke spends 50 million and they make 100 million. So they're giving that money away, but there's a profit return for the people that are well off. It's just an interesting way to view that debate, and I just found this to be a really interesting
a great
video.
topic.
There was so much in this. There's just so many morsels in this. I think when we cut this down, the most interesting part of this debate, because we pretty much agree with Mr. Beast being great. I think I might even started at this video when we cut this down. We did this live, but this is where the topic was. It was Tim Pool's take on Mr. Beast. And I have to thank Tim. I don't agree with him, and I ragged on him a bit, but at the same time, he did do a great job in raising this topic as a conversation piece that was much bigger than I would have expected. That's why he makes
you just have to watch the last couple of minutes of the video, and what a fantastic creative idea. I don't know if this is him, if he's picked this up from someone else or whatever, and he keeps something that he maybe is famous for and keeps saying it, but what a fantastic idea. And I think for that reason alone, it's worth the credit. But yeah, brilliant topic, mate. Thanks for bringing it to the table, and hopefully we can get into some similar topics, some similar videos with those kind of juicy bits that we can pick apart.
Yes. Well, we'll see what happens. Let's see what comes to pass this week. When I have my dirty trolling my algorithm time at 6:30 to 7 in the morning before I get out of bed, that's when these things start coming up. So I'm finding now that I'm embracing the algorithm to see what comes my way, and I'm going, well, I want to talk to you about that. But to anybody who notices, I am wearing my Eagles hat. So just anybody watches, next week is the Super Bowl.
No one cares.
And I don't know if you know this, Hugh, but the Eagles are in the Super Bowl next week. Yeah, see, you didn't know this. This is a big deal. So the Eagles are in the Super Bowl. So they're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I will be wearing this hat again next week. I'm not a superstitious guy. And on the golf course, as an avid golfer, I refuse to believe in the commentator's curse. I believe if you let yourself believe that, then you are going to fall victim to those things. Now, I have allowed myself to be a bit superstitious, and it is with this hat. Because I've worn this hat and they've won, I think, all but 2 of their games this year. And the games they lost, I haven't worn this hat. And it is a chance. It has nothing to do with it. And when I watched the game where they won against the 49ers, they weren't playing great. And I had the hat next to me on the couch.
No.
And then I was like, I forgot to put the hat on. And then they smashed it.
And
then the quarterback got injured. So I accept.
I ain't having it. I ain't having that, George.
Neither am I. But I can't not do it.
Do me a favor then.
No, I know what you're going to say. I'm not doing it.
Don't do it for the first quarter, because they'll come back if it works, won't it?
Yeah, it's true.
For the first quarter, because you're going to have power of 75%. Quarter 2, you can get it back on, but quarter 1, therefore, should go against you, and then further evidence of moving in that direction of your hypothesis.
Okay, so this would be an interesting video to even cut together. I will agree to not wearing the hat for the first quarter. I'll keep it next to me. And then
you'll be trembling, about to grab it when
I'm just going to be
touchdown goes against Kansas City.
Oh, they're losing. I don't
Oh,
know.
I've got to keep an eye. What time is this on, Sean? It might be
11
my bedtime.
11 at night. You'll be you,
Oh,
you go to
no,
bed at
I'll
like
see it in the morning.
8:30 or something. So you'll miss
I'll
it.
see it in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I
that'll
think
be
this
fun.
might be a good time to wrap. I think we're looking to be live again next Sunday. And just so you know, what we'll do is we'll record live, and then I'll chop the best bits up for posterity. So we'll have that out there. But if you are watching this, please do like and subscribe. And I hate saying that because it's so very cliche, but because we go live, I think once a week, I think it'd be good for you to subscribe to simply see when we're going to be going live. So if you do want to jump in and you want to comment and tell us how incredibly accurate my opinions are, even though I haven't walked in those shoes, then that would be an ideal thing to comment on.
Love
right?
it. Yeah. And if you've got any talking points you want us to cover, jump on live and get involved and give the other side of the argument. Me and Sean are all ears.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, mate, I really enjoyed this week, and thank you.
Mate.
And we look forward to catching up with everybody soon.
Have a great week, mate. Take care, everyone.
Take care.